yet another late edited episode and yet another episode with added context. So before we get into the episode proper, just want to go through and say that, well, during it, of course, discussing a lot of the things going on with the Blizzard lawsuit and all the other legal actions that have been going on, things have gotten even, crazier since I actually recorded it last Wednesday. And during the episode, I tried to be, the hopeful optimistic. Maybe Jen O'Neill didn't quit, because Activision Blizzard was just such a hopeless case that she had just given up with the thoughts of being able to make any meaningful changes. And well, that was a lie. And because more context has come out and added that Jen left because she found the situation outside of what she felt her ability to make meaningful change at the company. Not to mention, she couldn't even get a contract to be paid an equal amount to the co-lead, Michael Ybarra, which is just, if you're gonna hire two people to be more inclusive, one a man and one a woman to try and co-lead the company and show, look, we understand, we're gonna try and make things better. The bare minimum that you could do is at least pay both of them an equal amount. Now, of course, they did eventually offer Jen an equal amount after she tendered her resignation, which feels more like a legal cop-out. But, there you have it. I'll be talking more about this next week's episode. Do plan on recording on Wednesday. So that would be the Wednesday, let me pull it up on the computer here, the 24th. But until then, I'll let you go ahead and get into the episode proper, and I wish you all some fun times. Oh, hi! It hasn't so much been a while, but I know for those that listen to the podcast, which is the majority of the users, or the people that catch it on YouTube and such, I was severely late with actually getting the prior episode uploaded, because it's like I went through, recorded the episode, was getting all ready to set and go, and then boom, everything that I was talking about happened, and then of course, well, I'll edit it, I'll edit a little intro and put it together, in a day, and then the next thing. So we got, I was talking about Diablo Immortal, and then the Diablo Immortal beta happened, and then the Diablo 3 PTR happened, and then there was some lawsuit updates, and so a whole bunch of stuff all going through and happening. So while the last episode 219, was waiting for updates, well, I'd like to welcome you to episode 220. We got those updates because, man, answers for almost every single question went through and came up. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff. We've got some new updates for the Diablo 3, because we've got the PTR. We got some little tiny updates for Diablo 2 Resurrected. And of course, we've got a ton of things to discuss when it comes to Diablo Immortal. But first, there, of course, have been some updates in the ongoing legal troubles that Activision Blizzard is in the middle of due to some accusations based of the state of California in the lawsuit, the workers' discrimination lawsuit against them. And, some of these things are positives. As I was mentioning in the last episode, or a little mini update that I gave in the front of the previous episode, if you watch the show on the VOD on Twitch, or if you watch it live and haven't listened to the YouTube or the actual edited podcast versions, we had talked about, Activision Blizzard not acknowledging it had been 3 months, and ATVI was not acknowledging the demands of a better ABK, their worker alliance, kind of like the workers' rights group that they're trying to move forward with, and pseudo, trying to form a union, something like that. And well, they actually came through and acknowledged some of those demands that they were going through and making. And I mean, it's not like it's like I say demands, and it's a very strong term, of course. And just to be clear, it's not really that bad. The four demands that A better ABK Workers Alliance made of Activision Blizzard was 1. To end mandatory arbitration clauses in all employee contracts, current and future. 2. The adoption of recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and promotion policies designed to improve representation among employees at all levels, agreed upon by employees in a company-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion organization. Current practices have led to women, in particular women of color and transgender women, non-binary people, and other marginalized groups that were vulnerable to gender discrimination not being hired fairly for new roles when compared to men. Number 3, publication of data on relative compensation, so like benefits packages, salaries, things of that nature. And number 4, empower a company-wide diversity and equity inclusion task force to hire a third party to audit ABK's reporting structure, HR department, and executive staff, because it is imperative to identify how current systems have failed to prevent employee harassment and to propose new solutions to address these issues. Those are the 4 demands that a Better ABK Workers Alliance made of the company. And now it took 3 months, but Activision did finally acknowledge and actually go forward with some of those demands. They didn't go through and meet all of them, and there's some little caveats on some of the things that we're going to be discussing. But it should be noted that at least they went through and did that, because you have a similar situation happening over at Riot, and everybody knows the big, sexual harassment litigation that went on 3 years ago in 2018 against Riot that is still ongoing. And even though all of the light has been on Blizzard and Activision, the state of California also filed a lawsuit against Riot at a couple of months before it filed the one against Blizzard. So they're in a very similar case. They've not answered any of the commands. And another very public one has been Ubisoft, which earlier this year has gone through its own share of corporate BS and things like that, of very similar stories of everything that we've had coming out of Blizzard, which Ubisoft themselves have also failed to go through and acknowledge any of the demands or concerns that their employees had. So there is something to be said that ATVI is at least acknowledging some of these demands and moving forward on some of them as well. And so last week, Bobby Kotick, the CEO of ATVI, put forth a letter that went through and discussed some of the steps that Activision is going to be taking forward in the future in order to try and improve the workplace, from the bottom up. And so one of the things that they're going to be doing is they're going to be launching a new zero tolerance harassment policy company-wide, because they acknowledge that their enforcement of the current zero tolerance harassment policy isn't equal. Some people get fired, some people get a talking to, some people get put on suspension, and so they want to try and have a better process that's more uniform and holding everybody accountable to the same level. They also in that one talk about that they're wanting to go through and hold new internal investigations, and that if someone has been going through and found to be violating these policies, that they will retroactively hold them accountable for some of these things. It comes close to the things that they're going through and asking for, because the Worker Alliance is specifically asking for a third party to come in and audit the company's policies and look at it, because right now Activision Blizzard has Wilmer Hale, a known union busting firm that kind of helps clean corporate messes up but leaves the power structure still in place, and so it really just makes things better on the corporate side, not so much for the employees. Next down the list, in this letter, they say that they will increase the percentage of women and non-binary people in their workforce by 50%, and will invest $250 million to accelerate opportunities for diverse talent. And that's one of those ones, is that as of the writing of this letter last week, approximately 23% of their global employee population identifies as a woman or non-binary. And so what these practices are actually set up to do They want to increase that workforce by 50%, which still only puts it 34-35% of the workforce ended up being women or non-binary. It's not like they're trying to push straight for 50-50, you're a dude, you're getting fired, or anything like that. It's just that they want to, as they build up their company, they want to be more inclusive in the hiring practices. They also are going to be investing money and resources into trying to have better initiatives that expand the possibilities. Some of that involves whether it be grants or scholarships or things for people looking to get into gaming, or just programs to help them get jobs, specifically at Activision Blizzard. They're also going to be developing some programs or guides to help better cultivate talent from within, people that are already working there, in order to try and better them, so that way they can grow people that are already working at the company into these more leadership style positions. And this is something that's important, because it's not just like doing equality for equality's sake. If you go back over the last couple of months of the stories that we've heard from the employees and such, where it was like at the point that you have to give like your notes and data that you took to one of your male colleagues in a business meeting, because if you said it, no one would care. But if you got a guy to say it, all of a sudden it becomes relevant. Those are the types of things that these policies are intended in order to try and subdue or create. And it keeps coming down to like that whole bro culture, and the frat boy culture, I should say, is better. Because it's just like, oh, you'll listen to a guy, but as it's just a woman flapping her gums. Those are the things that they're trying to improve. They're trying to get rid of those people, or hopefully teach them, get them to better understand that, hey, you're being a douche, let the lady talk, she's making some good points. Those are the types of things that these policies are, at least from what we see, intended in order to curb. Whether they follow through with that, that's going to take time, possibly years. It sucks. It really sucks that it's like you're not just going to snap your fingers and solve all the problems. I mean, look at civil rights in the US. Here we are, 50, 60 years later, and we still haven't figured it out. So this is definitely something that's going to take time, and this probably isn't going to be the last time that this particular story is heard, over many years. Even the Activision Blizzard themselves, of course, is acknowledging this, that the investment, the $250 million that they're investing into these initiatives and such, is over the course of 10 years in order to take these steps and build it up. And even then, there are opportunities to try and expand their workforce, by increasing their diversity hires and promotions by that 50% is a 5-year process. So these are things that take time. No one's going to be losing their jobs overnight, just because you're a dude, or just because you're in an overrepresented group, whether you're like white or in a lot of these jobs, Asian or something like that. You're not in danger. They're just trying to make it even across the board, because there's obviously a lot of disparity, because it's a lot of frat boys hiring and promoting frat boys. They're just going and not necessarily even giving people of this isn't even like, oh, you're just hiring the best person for the job. No, you're hiring the guy that you like in your last cube crawl that you had. And that's what a lot of these issues stem from. The next one down is, of course, based on feedback from employees, we are waiving required arbitration of sexual harassment and discrimination claims. Now, a Better ABK's original demand is that they just end forced arbitration across the board. And so this is one that they're specifically only waiving forced arbitration for sexual harassment or discrimination claims. But anything else is still going to be forced arbitration. So you have to prove that it's a discrimination, that you didn't get a pay raise, as opposed to just, oh, your manager didn't like you. And so, well, your manager didn't like you, but not based on you being a woman or the color of your skin or anything. just didn't like you, so now we got to go to arbitration, and all the additional legal steps that might, take in order to prove that, yeah, they didn't promote me because I am a woman, or what have you. They will continue to increase visibility on pay equity by releasing a annual report of what their pay representation is across the company, but not, individually or as in depth or in detail as anybody would want, because it's like, oh yeah, sure, because even what is it? In fact, our U.S. analysis showed that women at the company on average earn slightly more than men for comparable work in 2020. But in order to ensure transparency on continuing commitment to pay equity, we will report these results annually. And of course, that's, them going through and saying that, and you just have to believe their numbers, as opposed to just publishing the data out there and letting people see, because it's something that just, case in point, you have someone that's worked at the company for 5 or 6 years that is still, like an associate, but has been, and has been passed on promotions because of discrimination against them because they're, say, a woman, but they still have gotten, pay raises, and they've taken a lot of extra work and stuff like that. So they've been compensated okay for their position, and so now they're like the highest paid associate, job title. But in all honesty, because the, another employee that was hired at the same exact time has gotten 2 promotions in that same, like, 5 or 6 year time period, and so now they're making considerably more money. But because they have a different job title, it doesn't show. So that's just like one of those instances where these metrics might not necessarily be 100% reflective of what's actually happening. Because if you can't guarantee that people of equal talent and skill are also being promoted equally when you have 9 different job titles to associate, like associate producer, producer, senior producer, lead producer, game producer, principal producer, senior producer 2, principal 2, all these other types of levels and stuff like that, and that you just keep continuing to add extra to, give people higher and higher at the top more and more pay raises. And sure, you can say that, oh yeah, women earn more because they're all associates and none of them are seniors. And so they're just, they're associate producers that have worked here for 10 years, and all the other, everyone else that was hired at the same time has all been, promoted many times, and they're making considerably more. But, it's fair for the job title, right? That's where the issues with still hiding behind, that curtain and not actually revealing the individual data itself. It's something that I'm always big on. Discussing pay is federally protected. You are 100% allowed to discuss pay, and if your company retaliates against you, it's a lawsuit that you can go through and happen. Obviously, you've got to weigh, is the money that you would get in compensation for the lawsuit worth, the whole getting fired aspect. But who's to say? Depends on how good your lawyer is, right? But it's a federally protected right in order to discuss pay, regardless of what your company's policies are. But companies do that because the less information you have about what your peers are making, the less information you have of which to try and barter or talk your way into being compensated fairly. It's something that a lot of the times, that just because someone is earning more doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing more or performing better. It could nepotism is real. Nepotism, it runs corporations through and through. So you might very well not be making as much money as your cube mate because he's the manager's next door neighbor or something, and they hang out and go fishing every weekend. So whereas for like the last 2 years you've gotten, you know, like 5-6% raises. He's gotten 10-12% raises, just because, oh yeah, well, we'll fudge the numbers a little bit and just make him look better, regardless of what your payloads are looking like. And then finally, the last thing in the Activision letter is we will provide regular progress updates. You know, and this kind of comes into the whole request, the pseudo, you know, acknowledging the request where they want an outside company to go through and audit, you know, the changes that ATVI is happening, but they're just doing it internally and saying, well, here's what we found, you know, because everybody trusts the corporation that was hiding all of this thing for years, decades, what have you. And so, you know, while it is good that they're taking steps, I will again say this: they are taking steps. They are being very corporate about it and still protecting their own interests, but they're doing better than everybody else. So, you know, gotta give them something, right? Because what is it? One of the other ones is just 2 days ago, they also announced. Oh yeah, and also in that letter, Bobby Kotick took a pay cut. So instead of being his like annual salary of like $200,000 or something like that, he's dropping down to like the $67,000, which is like the minimum amount that you can work as a salaried employee in California. You know, and so they legally can't be paid less than that, type thing. You know, the man just made the guy a $150 million bonus check this year. Who cares, right? You know, the man has so much in stock. His dividends, you know, will probably pay him a couple $1 million over the course of the year. So let's be real. That him taking a pay cut is token at best. That's if he doesn't accept his bonuses. And I think, you know, he could go through. He did say that I also don't want any bonuses, and it has to be approved by the board, which is true. You know, those things, compensation packages, do have to be approved by the board. He can't just say, "Don't pay me a bonus." You know, they have to do these things because that's how contracts work. But, you know, a year from now, if the story's blown over and they win their lawsuit and all of the other types of things, do you think anyone will really notice or care if he goes ahead and collects like an $80 million bonus check? I don't, you know, let's just be honest. Like, the news and things like that is very fickle. People's attention spans are very fickle. So that one is just, it's a nothing burger. You know, who really cares? But while we're talking about pay, you know, 2 days ago, it was announced that let's rewind a little bit further than 2 days ago. A couple of weeks ago, there was some rumors that Activision Blizzard might be forcing their contract workers into taking unpaid leave during the holidays, and that was creating some commotion and such. And so we then had, earlier this week, they made an announcement that all temporary workers will receive Thanksgiving and winter breaks as paid time off. This is contract employees. This is something that a lot of industries do, particularly the video game industry, that a very large majority of your workers, even ones that had been there for 5 or 6 years, are actually contract workers. That they basically work 6-month or 1 year long contracts that they just re-sign. But one of the things that this does is that a lot of times contract workers don't have to receive the same benefits. A lot of times they just don't receive any benefits. And that you can kind of like have some divisions in there where you can force them to take paid time off and other things like that. Generally, you see this in a lot of like AAA games because, well, we got to ship this, and so you might have like a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract up until the game ships, and then your contract is over and you go somewhere else to find a job, or they may be extended on for another year or two until they open up a permanent position and you become a full-time employee. But when I say temporary workers, because I'm just reading what the address is, this is could also is synonymous with contract workers, because I'll also be using that term shortly thereafter, because there's always, you know, two sides to everything, right? So all temporary workers will be receiving Thanksgiving and winter breaks as paid time off. They are increasing the minimum hourly rate for all temporary employees to $17 per hour. And then on January 1st, 2022, all temporary workers will receive 13 paid holidays each year. Our agency partners have agreed to match the sick paid time off that we offered to Blizzard temporary employees, increasing the number of accruable sick days to 9 days each year. Those employed by Blizzard already have this benefit, so this is one of those things where this is a company-wide to Activision Blizzard. Blizzard was already offering the paid time off, but now the company as a whole is going to be getting those paid time off, those sick days. And then they're also going to begin new career growth and learning programs as part of the temporary workers development, with additional information on that is forthcoming. Now that is, of course, really cool, as in addition to the 9 paid days off, you get the 13 paid holidays. Generally those things like Christmas, Thanksgiving. Some companies will do Thanksgiving in Black Friday. Like they'll do the Easter Monday, where you have the Good Monday, like if July 4th falls on a Saturday or Sunday, you get the Friday or Monday off. Things such as that, where you get those additional paid holidays. I have to say that is more than triple the amount of PTO I get every year at my company. And if I fucking work Christmas, and then they'll be like, oh, we'll give you 1 extra PTO day. Great, now I've got 8 for working Christmas. Thank you so much. Not bitter at all, but still, that's great. Those are great improvements. It's good to see that they are moving forward with increasing the pay and the benefits package to their contract workers. And that's something that you don't see a lot in the video game industry, or a lot of industries, where contract workers are just slightly above minimum wage slaves, where they're treated as such. You get no PTO, you get no benefits, you just come in and you do work, and then that's it. It's just a way to circumvent a lot of labor laws and things of that nature. And it's all good, right? That's all good. That's great. Those are perfect steps forward, showing that the company really cares about improving their culture, improving their workplace, empowering their workers. Oh, wait, what's this? Oh, it seems that on the same day, actually, Activision filed a claim in their ongoing lawsuit with California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing, trying to remove contract workers from the lawsuit because they said that they were added improperly, that they missed the time frame in order to add the contract workers into the suit, because the state of California filed the suit and then later amended adding contract workers into the lawsuit as well. And then Activision Blizzard is trying to claim that, well, they were added too late, so you've got to take them out. You can't add them into that. In addition to further trying to discredit the state of California's lawsuit against them, saying that they're acting sloppy, improperly, that they're coming at this over aggressively, and that they're trying to dismiss 3 additional claims of the 11 that were brought forward by the state of California. They're trying to eliminate the employee discrimination because of sex. They're trying to get rid of employment. That people were being terminated because of discrimination against sex, and that those cases being brought up. That there was employee discrimination because of sex, where there were being constructive discharges, as well as other things about the waiver of rights procedures and things. That they are actively trying to undermine this case in any way, shape, or form that they can, while at the same time, at the federal level, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Commission, is trying to get the state of California's case thrown out, because they want their win. The federal government wants their case to move forward. And obviously, Activision Blizzard wants the federal case to go forward, because with the federal case, they have that, again, if you're not familiar, the EEOC's case that they said that they had talks break down with Activision Blizzard, and so they were filing a lawsuit in court, and then a couple hours later, they reached a settlement agreement. for $18 million, which $18 million is supposed to cover, years, if not a couple of decades worth of sexual harassment. So for the low price, somewhere between a little bit less than $1 million to $1.5 million per year, you're allowed to sexually discriminate and harass your employees. Deal, right? Awesome. Because if you go through and you're someone that was affected in this case, and you go through to claim compensation out of that fund, you have to waive all of your rights. You waive Activision Blizzard of any wrongdoing that they might have, that might have happened under their watch, and that's it. That's the end of the story. So so that's why the state of California is filed an injunction to stop the federal case from going through. Because if it does, and people start signing up to take that compensation fund, those are fewer people that they can call as witnesses in the state of California, because now that they are bound from holding Blizzard accountable for any of their actions. And so this whole big, giant, more or less dick measuring contest about who gets to hold Activision Blizzard accountable, and just... It would be funny if it wasn't so sad, because this is just like corporate greed at its finest, right? No, it's just, look at this little shiny thing over here on the side. Look, we're bumping up the pay of our contract workers, right? While actively trying to fuck them in the lawsuit. Yeah. On to Diablo news. It just it gets better. It gets better every episode, right? But that's why I will continue to cover it. Love it or hate it, I will continue to cover updates in the lawsuit at the beginning of every single episode, because I want Blizzard to be better. I want Blizzard to do better. I want Blizzard to be the company that I remember them being when I was ignorant of all of this stuff happening. Because I've said it before, it's not so much that 15 years ago this shit wasn't happening, it was. It was happening, 2 years ago, it was happening 5 years ago, it was happening 10 years ago, very well was probably happening 15 years ago. If not even longer than that. It wasn't that the Blizzard that we remember, it wasn't happening, we just didn't know. Now we know. And I do not want to go back. I want Blizzard to be as I remembered it, where they weren't doing these types of things, And there's still hope. They can change. They're going through and they're getting rid of some of the alleged perpetrators of these actions, and we hope that they'll get rid of, or hold accountable all of them. And we'll wait and see. And before I actually get into the straight Diablo news, I do have one more rant, and that is this past weekend, Riot Games and Netflix launched their League of Legends TV show, Arcane, with its first 3 episodes, or as they're calling Act 1, to tell a story. And I know nothing about League of Legends. I played the game 12 years ago, and I think I got to level 20-ish or something. I don't even know what the max level is anymore or whatever. Yeah, I know nothing about the lore, the character, or the history. God, that show was good. Those 3 episodes were amazing. The art style was great. The writing and the character development was amazing. I actually, knowing nothing about the series, I liked all of those characters. And then going through and then looking them up, some of those characters never even existed before. They're not in the game. And it was just well, I'm invested in them now. Some of them are, some of them aren't. They're made up just for the show or whatever. But it's so good and enthralling. And I'm just left wondering afterwards, how many years has it been, since, it leaked that Blizzard was looking for a showrunner to make a Diablo animated series with Netflix? And we've, of course, what was it? It was 2 years ago we learned, that there's the VP at the Activision Blizzard Studios had updated his LinkedIn profile that he was like executive producer for the Diablo Netflix show, and then that all quickly got removed and everything. And then we've heard zero about it since then. Nothing, nada, not from like the Diablo sites, not from video game sites, not from movie and TV shows, investigative journal sites and things like that. That leads me to believe it's just gone. That's like one of those things. Like, if it was just Blizzard going through and making it themselves, sure, they can go through and keep a lid on that type of thing. But because they're like contracting like outside studios and other things like that, going through and working on it, that type of stuff gets out. Like, that stuff gets known. I mean, that's why we even know about it in the first place, because they were working with Netflix in order to go through and work on it, and that is how it got leaked in the first place. And it's just like, what happened? It's like, if they're waiting on it and they don't want to pull the trigger on it or something until we get closer to Diablo 4, which, as we'll cover in the episode, got, quote-unquote delayed, that we learned in this last earnings call. It's that even that doesn't make sense, because you don't want to launch a TV show right when Diablo 4 launches, because you want people playing Diablo 4, not watching your TV show. Now is like the perfect time. Next year, is going to be the perfect time to launch a Diablo TV show. You got the hype rolling where, engagement with Diablo 3 is at an all-time high. Interest in the Diablo franchise because of the Diablo 2 Resurrection launch is at an all-time high. Next year, you're going to be going through and getting millions of new players with Diablo Immortal going through, breaking into the mobile market. That is at like the peak when you want to get everybody sucked in, make an awesome like TV shows, something like Arcane or Castlevania, or hell, even mediocre like the Resident Evil Netflix show that came out like last month. Just to pull people in and get people interested, with the game, the franchise, because someone might just be clicking through on Netflix and be like, oh, what's this? Oh, that's cool. Oh, I can play that game. I enjoyed that show. I can play it on my phone. Sure, why not? Or it was on Xbox. Yeah, okay, I'll give it a try. That's the type of thing that you want. It keeps the hits coming, right? Because you're waiting in between like your big releases, and that's when this third-party media is supposed to keep you engaged, keep you wanting more, keep the taste going until you drop Diablo 4. And it's like, man, they've been so bad at this. Warcraft should have had like some sort of like web short TV show ages ago, like forever ago. Overwatch should have launched with a TV show, right? They had all this stuff with Overwatch and all those great character vignettes and such that were so engaging. I barely played the game, but I cared who Tracer was. I cared about Soldier 76 and all those other types of stuff. I thought those characters were cool and engaging. And then there was zero story in your game, and then you try and push it forward with like comics and then like little more character vignettes and changing the art style and all those other types of stuff. And while it's cool, it's distracting in a non-uniform way. It's like you should have just make an internal show. Expand your cinematics department, make it a studio, and just churn out your own like TV show. That's what they should have done, and they should have done it with Overwatch, and they could have done it then with all the other franchises at that point, right? I mean, you look at it, it's just like Castlevania was like 2 years per TV show or per season ish. They waited like the 4 episodes at start, and then they waited a year for like 8 episodes, and it was like 2 years, for like 10, and then like another year for that. It's like you've got not everything has to be. It's not like it's not the 90s anymore. You don't launch your new TV shows in September and then have to have it wrapped up in June and then take the summer off. It's like things are just like, yeah, just launch it whenever. You could be like She-Ra and do 5 seasons in 2 years, or you can do 2 seasons in 3. It's flexible. You can do it. You just have to, I don't know, do it. It's just there's obviously something that goes on at Blizzard or Activision Blizzard that just, I don't know, they just trip up over themselves. It's like that seeking perfection or something else. It's like, just god damn it, just do it. And don't let it be like another Heroes of the Storm, where, if you remember, it was Blizzard Dota, back in the day, and in between the announcement of Blizzard Dota as a mod for, or a paid mod for, like, StarCraft 2, or premium mod, whatever it was, for StarCraft 2, and then getting spun out into its own game in the StarCraft 2 engine, the announce to launch, in that middle of that announcement, they announced, like, Valve announced Dota 2 and then launched Dota 2 before them. And, well, Dota 2 is still alive and kicking with great support and, hundreds of millions of fans, and Heroes of the Storm got, like, effectively shut down, like, 2 years ago. So it's like, don't let it be where you're so wrapped up with being perfect that you fail to do something in time. Because that's what I feel. Heroes of the Storm had launched earlier and didn't have that long drawn out, like, production. Obviously, I don't work in games development. I know that there's a lot of stuff that goes through and happens and such, but it just always seems at Blizzard, a lot of times they miss the boat on certain things. There was with League of Legends at the time was skyrocketing in popularity. Valve went out and grabbed, the people that had made the Dota mod, or some of the people that had made the Dota mod, because they wanted to get in on, the MOBA market. Blizzard saw some opportunities there, but were just slow to cultivate it, where these other studios went through and capitalized on it. There's also, like, Smite and some other, smaller, MOBAs out there that have found niches and were able to exist in this ecosystem. But just, there's certain things that you have to capitalize on, and you have to do them in a timely manner before the train sails. Like, kind of like what happened to Heroes of the Storm. Like, the train left the station, the ship sailed. The market was oversaturated with MOBAs, and then only a few were able to survive, or were able to actually claim enough attention in order to go through and survive. And a lot of the other ones just died off because the support wasn't there. Heroes of the Storm, unfortunately, was one of those ones. And, the Blizzard name doesn't just carry that weight, especially nowadays, anymore, to demand that type of attention. They have to fight for that, just like any other type of major studio. Just because there's, I guess, like, Nintendo is really the only studio out there that doesn't really have to fight, in order to keep their fan base anymore. But, just because you're a longtime fan of Assassin's Creed doesn't mean that you're going to pick up, like, every Assassin's Creed game. If the reviews are terrible, you probably will pass on it. You still have to put out a constant quality product in order to go and get those things. Blizzard used to just be like, oh, it's a Blizzard title, I'll buy it. I really don't care. Now, they've got to put up just like everybody else. But they also have to do it in time, in timely fashion, in order to keep up with the demands of the market, of the consumer base. But that's enough of a rant for now. Let's actually start covering some Diablo news. We're so far into the episode, and I haven't even started covering the news yet. Oh man. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's have a rudimentary order. So Diablo 2 Resurrected. They are continuing to improve the server stability and the online experience. For going through and playing in Diablo 2. We've gotten some patches for the PC and for the console since the last episode. They've updated the game client to be able to scale the rate at which players can join and create games based on server capacity. And so that means you're not set, 100 people trying to log in when there's no one online won't have the same type of queue as 100 people trying to log in when the servers are full, or there's millions of people online. And so that's just, scaling that back, because what it was doing, it was gating at the same rate, regardless of how many people were playing, whether, if the servers could actually handle that many people logging in at the same time, because there weren't that many people on anyways. They're now scaling that, so that way if you're not playing during peak times, you are able to get into the game faster, as well as allowing you to create more games that you're actually already in. You can create games faster because there's not as many being created. They're also adding better message. They're also adding in-game messaging to communicate how long that you have to wait. So you're not just sitting there trying to create a game, like trying to time it out. Like, it hasn't been 2 minutes yet. Oh shit, it hasn't. So I have to wait 2 more minutes. They also are going to add kind of like a refund. Because before, if you typed in the incorrect password or you tried to join a full game, you got that same gating, and so it stopped you from being able to join a game for that period of time. Now, if you failed to join, you're not blocked from going and rejoining immediately again. As well as a similar update for console that was also filling in some of the issues that the console was having with like communication of the game joins and such, and for a brief period of time it was almost impossible to play on console because it wasn't telling you that there was a queue to log in, so it was just kicking you until you were lucky enough in order to like jump in. So we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Every time that they go through and they make a stability improvement like that, that means we're one step closer to the start of the ladder season for Diablo 2. And the sooner that the ladders start, the sooner they might be open to talking about future content plans for Diablo 2. Because they're always like, KG, let's just launch the game, or let's just launch the ladders, and we'll talk about that other stuff later. But so many people are discussing it, so many people are asking for it, it has to be on the radar. Blizzard has to actually be actively working on that stuff. Which, speaking of which, Vicarious Visions has announced that they will be dropping the Vicarious Visions name, putting to doubt any of those rumors that Vicarious Visions might still be working on they're just going to be working on like remasters, or they're just going to be they might work on other Activision titles and such. Nope, they are just Blizzard. There's some rumors that they might be Blizzard Albany because they're based in New York, but it is just Blizzard, no longer Vicarious Visions. Yep. Every step that they take, we're closer to getting the ladders and potential news as to what they have planned for the future of Diablo 2 Resurrected. It's here. It's popular. I enjoyed my brief stint in it. I am kind of like looking forward to more like playing on the ladder and having a goal and such. But I am looking for a bit more. I guess I'm less inclined to just want to play and grind. I'm not as, going through and being like the lofty goal of like hitting 99 or completing a holy grail is just, I don't know, it's like just not as enticing to me. It's like, oh yeah, let's go through and have this thing where it's like, takes 5 years of straight dedication of playing the same game in order to go through and complete. Like, that doesn't entice me as much. Though I would hope to maybe one day get a Death's Web, right? Because that's my Holy Grail list. My Holy Grail is just a Death's Web. That's it. Easy, right? Absolutely easy. But Diablo 3, obviously Diablo 3, we got some big news. We had the Season 25 PTR announced and then launched. People have been loving the new mechanic that they have planned for Season 25, because it's in order to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Diablo franchise, is that they are going to be implementing new gems. They call them soul shards that you'll be able to socket into your weapon and into your helmet, because absolutely nothing has ever gone wrong with socketing a demonically corrupted soul stone into your forehead. Absolutely no bad things have ever occurred but going through and doing that in the history of the franchise. But it's a twist on, we've had like the twist on weapons with the ethereals, the current or past season. But going into season 25, we're gonna have these new gyms, that you can go through and socket, and they're really interesting. And so they all start with a base effect, and there's other there's like a type of currency that drops in the game called Hellforge Embers, and that currency consumable is then used to upgrade the shards. And so there are the 3 primeval shards, the 4 lesser evil shards. They're all themed around the 7 evils. Mephisto, Baal, Diablo, and then Belial, Asmodan, Duriel, and Andariel. They all kind of have their own soul stones. So you've got hatred, terror, destruction, yada yada. And they all kind of have like little themes around that. And just to give you an idea, you've got the Sliver of Terror, obviously the Diablo's shard. All of the prime shards are socketed into your helm, and there's like 4 ranks. Excuse me, 4 ranks to the shards themselves. And as you upgrade them, they have some bonuses. The first one is always the unique effect. And so for the Sliver of Terror, you will always have your cooldowns are increased by 25%. But for every skill on cooldown, you take 12.5% reduced damage and deal 75% increased damage. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. So obviously now your cooldowns take longer, but while your skills are on cooldown, you're getting a huge damage increase as well as a damage reduction increase. And then for the helms, all of the primeval gems, the next 2 ranks are pretty much exactly the same. And what it is that the next rank will basically give you, as if you have socketed a gem of every color into your helm. You get cooldown reduction, resource cost reduction, a life percent increased, experience bonus, and a gold find bonus. There is a little bit of variance there. So it's at base, I believe it's the Flawless Royal. So like for the cooldown reduction, the lowest it can roll is 12.5%. But it can get up to 15%, so it can actually go and give you a bigger bonus, and you get all of those at once. So socketing that at rank 1 into your helm gives you the bonus of having a gem of every color in your helm. The second bonus that you get is then you get 1 stat out of a random allotment. You can get main stat, not just dex, int, and strength, but you can also get vitality. You armor, all resist, and then melee or ranged damage reduction. And that is random, which one of those that you get. Well, in the other one, you get the combination of all of the gems. The next one, you only get one of those bonuses. So from a damage aspect, obviously, you probably would want your main stat. Though you can also still get armor or all res or something like that if you're like a ZDBS build. And then finally, the last rank that you have, it's a random. You get there's 3 unique effects of each gem, and you get one of them rolled. And so, if like the Sliver of Terror, if you have 3 or more skills on cooldown, your lightning and fire damage is increased by 50%, or your attack speed and crit chance is increased by 7% for each skill that's on cooldown. Or you cast a devastating ring of fire after killing 50 enemies. And that, like a lot of other effects, deals a ridiculously boosted damage, and we've had multiple accounts of people solo clearing greater if 150s and then using that trigger in order to like one-shot Rift Guardians. So, there's that. Which I'm sure is going to get some balance correction to it. But then, the Shard of Hatred. You deal 15% reduced damage while you have 3 or fewer enemies within 25 yards. But if there are more than 3 enemies within that same distance, you deal 10% increased damage per enemy up to 100%. So this is obviously your farming gym. So this is kind of like almost as if it was created with a group setting, because you have like the one class that's dedicated to clearing the trash mobs, and another one that's geared towards killing the Rift Guardian. This one actively requires multiple targets within range, otherwise you get a damage debuff. And then its rank 4 effects are, instead of dealing the 10% increased damage, you deal 15% up to 150 instead of 100. Your movement speed is increased by 50%, and then each enemy within 25 yards reduces your movement speed. And then killing an elite enemy will pull all other enemies within 40 yards to where the elite died. So just, nice grouping effects and such. Something that is almost handcrafted towards the meta. And then finally you have the Fragment of Destruction. You move unhindered through enemies, and each enemy that you pass through will mark them for destruction for 7 seconds. And each marked enemy that dies removes 1 second from one of your skills on cooldown. But if the mark of destruction expires before the enemy dies, you lose 2% of your maximum health. So, it's nice for going through and for a speedrunning build, because you just pass through enemies, and when you kill them, it reduces all of your cooldowns. So say a Pestilence Necro, not that build already kind of functions at peak efficiency, but just for that, you just run through, kill things, and it resets your Land of the Dead even faster. It's just as an example. With its rank 4 abilities, is now the mark of the duration is 10 seconds instead of 7. And you have a 25% chance to restore 5% of your health whenever an enemy with a mark of destruction dies. And you now leave a trail of fire in your wake that slays enemies with the mark of destruction that are below 10%. So you get an execute, 10% execute, which again, that's going to be, kind of great. Maybe not for a speed clear, doesn't really necessarily have some issues. Maybe at some higher levels, you take a little bit of time going and killing the Rift Guardian, but it just, kills things just that little bit faster. You don't have to make sure that they're 100% dead. You can leave them at 3% life, and then they walk into that trail of fire, and then boom, they're destroyed. And then for the 4 lesser shards, so again, kind of the recap, the 3 shards that you can equip in your helm, you've got one that's based on equipping a whole bunch of cooldown skills. Your cooldowns are all increased, but whenever a skill's on cooldown, you gain a stacking 75% bonus damage. You got the Shard of Hatred, which gives you a really big bonuses in order to kill mobs that are grouped up. And then the Fragment of Destruction, which just gives you a whole bunch of bonuses for killing monsters in short order as you pass through them in order to reset all of your cooldowns. The lesser shards, these all go in your weapon, and these ones similarly have a unique effect. Then you gain the bonus of socketing those the gems of every color into your weapon. So you just gain flat bonus damage, flat critical damage, flat bonus to elites, as well as life on hit and thorns damage. That starts at Flawless Oil Gem and scales up. So the critical strike chance starts at 130 but goes up to 150, so you can get better. The rank 2 is you get an offensive stat roll. So you'll get an additional attack speed, just flat damage bonus of the weapon, a critical strike chance, or you get a bonus random elemental damage. You get one of those effects that will go through and then apply to your weapon. And then finally, you get one of 3 unique effects. So the Essence of Anguish. This is every time that you deal poison damage to an enemy, it increases your cooldown, reduction, movement speed, and damage received by 5%, stacking up to 10 times. Kind of like squirts. You can really kill yourself by getting an extra of 100%, 150% damage taken, and it probably stacks multiplicatively. So be careful. But then its unique effects is your movement speed and cooldown reduction can increase up to 15 times instead of 10. So you can get up to 75% cooldown reduction in movement speed. Now when you deal poison damage, the enemy will receive 50% increased poison damage from all sources for 10 seconds. Just so that way it's a way that you get, that increased ramp damage. And then killing an enemy deals damage done by the death blow to all enemies within 25 yards. And so this one is all about dealing poison damage, where there are some ones that just do flat damage. A lot of them are also, like dots. But say if you kill an enemy with an attack that does, like you kill an enemy for 1 billion, it will then explode for 1 billion, to hit all the other enemies around it. So you kind of like get a double pop of damage as enemies start dying. The Remnant of Pain is your critical strike chance is just reduced by 15%, and attacks against incapacitated enemies are automatically critical hits. So normally you're doing fewer critical hits, but if you manage to keep the enemies CC'd, everything that you do is a crit. Amazing. Again, for kind of like speed clears or anything where you can keep the enemies locked down 100% of the time, going into like kind of like that group meta play where the large majority of killing the trash involves locking them down for large periods of time. Now you've got that huge burst window when you go through and stun them. And then the random effects at the end are when you critically hit an enemy, you increase the attack speed of all players by 5% up to a stacks 10 times. Hitting enemies with cold damage has a 50% increase to freeze them. And then cold skill damage is increased to frozen targets by 20%. And then also your move speed is 50% faster than normal, and you gain passability. Or while your move speed is 50% faster than normal, you can move through enemies. And when you move through enemies, you knock them back and stun them. So kind of like a way to trigger that incapacitate. Next you have the Dreg of Lies, which reduces the damage of enemies hit by 33%. For 5 seconds, but also reduces the damage that you deal by 50%. So this one is definitely like the ZDPS, that you don't really care about dealing damage, but it's just adding another layer of damage reduction, onto enemies. Double the damage reduction enemies receive when you critically strike them, so that way you still have a reason with which to hit them. Each elite that is slain with the damage reduction effect also reduces all of your cooldowns by 5 seconds. And then also on receiving fatal damage, you spawn a shadow that prevents your death, restores your health to 35%, and you gain 225 all resist to all party members while it is active for the next 15 seconds. So just a nice ZDPS upgrade. Not that ZDPS ever really needed boosts, but at least it's acknowledging the way that the meta plays, right? And then finally, the Stain of Sin. You deal 25% less damage, but when you kill an elite enemy, you spawn a pool of blood that then increases the damage non-elite enemies receive by 250%. So it's a different way of doing it. You're able to burn, if you can narrow it down and burn an elite, you can then kill everything else around it faster. But the pool of blood now will also collect Rift Progress Orbs. So you killed the elite, it spawned the Rift Progress Orbs, and now all of them get picked up. The pool of blood now also freezes non-elites, so they get stuck in the pool, they can't leave it. And the pool now also negates elite affixes, so it then cleans up around it. This is kind of like for a support character, and you'll need some way of killing the mobs, so like Executioner. That will go through and execute things, for you, or that Fragment of Destruction, where it will, kill an enemy that goes below like the 10% health, or like a ZDPS Necro, with the mark of Curse of Frailty, just that you have some way of dealing that final blow to kill the elite that then allows you to trigger that bonus, and then you really don't care about the damage reduction because you're ZDPS, right? That's the big draw. Obviously, there are some. They're trying to rebalance some stuff. They're trying to pull up like the Anarchyr and its support and its supporting pieces for the Witch Doctor. There's a little buff to Necro's Rathma set. There's a little bit of a buff to Shadows. The Shadows Mantle, where it in addition to dealing like that 75,000% increased damage to the first enemy hit, it will now still deal 25,000% increased damage to everything else. So like the ricochet or the impale that passes through now does AoE damage. It's no longer just a single target. You have some real viable options with which to AoE clear without having to spec one entirely into area damage and hoping for procs. Just adds it doesn't really add so much more power to the build. It increases its playability in that respect. The Marauders has been changed. It's back to its original intention, to where now the sentries will just automatically cast the spinders that you have equipped on your bar. And so it's not that you have to cast the spell to get the sentry to use it. It just starts doing it on its own. And then your own damage, as well as the damage your sentries deal, is increased by 12,000% for every active sentry. So this is a huge damage boost for Marauders, but also an interesting little change, because this is originally how Marauders did. You would throw up a whole bunch of turrets, it would spam Elemental Arrow, the Lightning Cloud, in order to go through and kill mobs, and you had to hit certain attack speed breakpoints in order to hit these obscene attacks per second for the skills. And there were different ways of weaving it, because certain skills had cooldowns. Like Cluster Arrow would only cast every X number of cycles, and you needed to have 5% attack. You had to have 5 attacks per second or 4 attacks, something ridiculous attacks per second, so that way you could get 2 cycles every 3 seconds in order to cast Cluster Arrow. And then if you got to 5 attacks per second, you'd get a 3rd cycle in, so that way you could then add multi-shot. So it would spam, Elemental Arrow, multi-shot, and Cluster Arrow on all these different cooldowns. And it just wasn't good because it was very passive. You'd throw out the sentries and you literally would do nothing. Because your sentries would do all the damage. But it also, if that playstyle had continued to today, that level of attack speed and the number of calculations, because the problem that higher end groups have with pushing those greater rift 150s isn't the size of the damage, it's the number of calculations that the game server has to handle that cause stability issues in D3. And if people are going to be going through and trying to maximize 3 lightning clouds a second from 5 different sentries, that's going to create some lag. Right? That's going to create some lag. It still at least gives you the damage bonus, so you're still doing things actively. You don't rely 100% upon your sentries. But when it's you and 4 sentries, the sentries are doing the majority of your damage, and you really don't have to do much yourself. So it adds a little bit of that passiveness back to the build, which, we'll see how that goes. Not to mention, just the fact that it does kill, the M4 N6, the Marauders Natalia's build. RIP. It was one of the last few quirky little multi-set shenanigans that you could go through and have, and now the focus is just entirely on the sets. I never played it. I know a lot of people felt that it was kind of jank, but it was an interesting thing to observe in the wild. And finally, Take a Shot, because Firebird's Finery has been changed again, which I think is already the second or third time this year that Firebird's has gotten changed, let alone how many times it's changed since the existence of the set. So there you have it. We can start a drinking game. We have to finish our drink every time Firebird's gets a set change. Yeah, a lot of good things. I've heard nothing but praise across the PTR, with the exception of some of those Firewake shenanigans at the higher end. But how many seasonal themes have been plagued by that, anyways? And so, sure, it sucks at the higher end, but are people having fun? Are the majority of the people that are going through and clearing their 100s or their 120s having fun with the new mechanic? That's what the really important part is. And from all intents and purposes, the response that we're getting for the shards and those mechanics are the same that we had for Ethereals, and everybody loved Ethereals, and everybody is loving what they're doing with the Shards. Some people are even loving them even more than the Ethereals. It creates another item hunt, you know, because it's not just a one and done, because it has all of those random little rolls between, you know, I want to make sure that on my Necro I get the intelligence roll, and I want the one where, you know, like the enemies explode, you know, when they hit 10% as I walk through them, because I don't want to run Frailty Aura, I want to do something else, you know, something along those lines. It's just, it adds a little bit more customization, a little bit more of that item hunt, that goal in order to find like the perfectly rolled item, and so it's, you know, that's always fun. It's always good, and definitely looking forward. By the time this episode gets loaded up, you know, I believe the PTR will still be going on because it's like a 2-week PTR, so we still have another week of it that's going. We should hopefully see a little patch or something this weekend, because I believe that they've done in the past PTR cycles is that they give us one patch, a couple of updates, and let's see how it looks with these changes that they were able to build upon from feedback during the first week of the PTR. So definitely looking forward to that. We talked about my rant about the Arcane in the Diablo series. We talked about Diablo 2 Resurrected. We talked about Diablo 3. Diablo 4. So the what is it? Diablo 4, as I mentioned earlier in the show, has been quote-unquote delayed, and we never had a release date or release window for Diablo 4, but in the most recent earnings call, Blizzard said that they were pushing Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 out of their 2022 launch window to a further undisclosed date. Now, we did not previously know that 2022 was their prospective launch window for Diablo 4. So that is news in and of itself, that they had originally intended to launch the game next year, but we found that out, of course, when they said they're not hitting that launch window. And so that it's respected out further, and so 2023, a date that we've talked about here on the show before, is you know, the earliest that it could be, but I guess is also now like the front runner of expectations of when the game itself is going to launch. So maybe a quarter 4 2023 launch for Diablo 4 seems a hell of a lot more likely. Which also, even though we won't be doing a BlizzCon line in February, they did say that a lot of the announcements that they would make, they'll be making over, you know, the coming months or quarters. So, 5th class acknowledgement win. You know, will my long-standing... I just want to know, will my long-standing guess... Because the day they announced Diablo 4, I said the Necromancer was going to be one of the classes, because, like, Halazar, the Swampland area, is the general area where, you know, the sunken city that the Necromancers operate out of was located. You know, it was in the jungles to the east of Kyrgyzstan. And the only thing east of Kyrgyzstan is a mountain range and a whole bunch of swampland along the coast. And so, well, that's now we know is a place called Halazar. We didn't know what it was called before, and now we do, and so that's where the Necromancer is. So just give me my Necromancer. I mean, I say that, and of course, God, it's been a long time, because the BlizzCon line was like the last episode of Danktuary that had gotten recorded when we had done the all day live stream covering all of the day's announcements. As far as Diablo was related, as well as discussing and talking things in between the Diablo panels. And I remember on that panel going through and discussing things, I think it was with Leviathan and Lord Fluffy, that as much as I want the Necromancer, I wouldn't be opposed to having something new, something different. Because right now we've got, you know, the Druid, the Sorceress, and the Barbarian, which are all returning. You know, whether it be from, you know, the Barbarian returning from like Diablo 3, Diablo 2, but then the Druid and the Sorcerer returning from, you know, Diablo 2. And so those are, you know, classes that we've already had before. The Rogue technically is returning from Diablo 1, but obviously is extremely different in its implementation. It's getting a modern skill set and revamp, something that, it had inner sight and could pick locks. That was Diablo 1 class bonuses, right? It wasn't much to write home about. So it's getting a proper glow up and can kind of be considered like the brand new class, because they're doing a lot of things with it that they've never done before in a Diablo game. But I still would like to see something new, something all new, because sometimes it works out. Like look at the Demon Hunter. Obviously was a big hit. Monk also was pretty popular. As opposed to like sometimes it doesn't work out, like with the Witch Doctor, where it just felt like a differently tooled Necromancer and people just wanted the Necromancer. So we have to wait and see. Obviously, there are two major archetypes in the series: the Holy Warrior tank, such as the Paladin or the Crusader, or the Summoner pet class, such as the Witch Doctor or the Necromancer, that the game does not yet have, and they only have one slot for. So maybe it's going to be a Holy Warrior pet class in order to hit both of them and then make nobody happy, right? And then of course, Diablo Immortal. Saving the best for last, because we got I was hoping that we'd have some sort of update on Diablo Immortal, or what might be going through and doing, because we kind of got some little tiny updates between the actual launch of the now we know closed beta and the closed alpha, where we had some like things that they learned and some insights that they had gleaned from the tests, and then all of a sudden, boom, we had the beta test dropped on us. And I would like to go through and thank Blizzard for going through and hooking me up with a loaner phone, because the game is only on Android, because they are testing real money transactions, and iPhone does not support that in their test environment. So I do fully appreciate Blizzard going through and hooking me up with one of those, so I can go through and test the game as well, because I'm an iPhone user, and going and dealing with Android for the first time in my life has its own complications, and it's like its own testing period for myself. Can I figure out how this phone works? Answer is no. It's like, I'm like, how do I close an app? Like, I don't even know how to close an app. Good times. I did subsequently learn how to close one, so I'm learning. But yeah, there were so there were some new things, there were some refined things, and there were some first-time implemented things. And of course, going through, obviously, we got the Necromancer. I segued that one well, didn't I? We knew the Necromancer was coming, and it had already been announced as a class. It was just the last class that we got a chance to go through and play, and it plays beautifully. It is Necromancer, is the Diablo 3 Necromancer version 2.0. Because it takes a lot of the core elements of the Necro and then makes them better. Like your skeletal minions actually like deal damage and feel as if they're warriors fighting alongside you. That's striking a great balance between the Diablo 2, where the skeletons do do all of the work until you get revives, and you just go and get a whole bunch of Ugors, I can't say that word, to then crushing blow all of your bosses down for you. But the skeletons go through, do all of the work, and you kind of sit back and throw some curses, and then once things die, some corpse explosions in order to finish the rest of it off. As then in the Diablo 3, where the skeletons are there. They give a damage bonus for the new Rathma set, and that's kind of it. Or there was some jank ones where the skeletons would ramp infinite damage, and then eventually be able to kill Rift Guardians of any flavor. Back before like 150s were really in the name of the game, they were able to go through and push those. That subsequent interaction was nerfed many years ago. But So the Necromancer Skeletons in Diablo Immortal, they don't hold aggro or threat like they do in Diablo 2, but they deal a hell of a lot more damage than what they do in Diablo 3. They're actually sitting there, and then the legendaries that you can augment them with in the game can give some pretty interesting and powerful effects. Like I said, just baseline, they do decent damage and can go through and help, especially as a range class. You might be running around and trying to dodge certain mechanics when you're fighting bosses and Rift Guardians. That the skeletons are always on them doing constant damage. They generally don't really hold aggro, that if the skeleton attacks anything, it instantly will target onto you. In some cases where you've got a lot of targets, there is some sort of, I don't know, threat or target acquisition mechanic that's going on there, where if it's just one enemy, I've noticed, that always will come to you. But if there are like 5 enemies, 3 will come to you and 2 will focus on the skeletons. Like, there's something that's going on there where there is a little bit of threat assessment, and so it does take off some of the steam off of you once you start piling on more and more targets, that they will start focusing on the skeletons a bit more the more that there are. I don't know if this is just confirmation bias on my side, or if it's something that's actually actively happening in the game, but it's just something I've noticed playing around with a whole bunch of pets. And so it's great, improvement in that respect. Same thing for the Skeletal Mage. It's kind of similar in the base implementation to the Diablo 3 one, but it's a turret. So when you summon a Skeletal Mage, it lasts for just a limited amount of time. It's to one location, and then it blasts damage, like a lot of damage. And you can have a couple up at once because it has you can get up to 3 charges for it. So you can save them all up, drop a whole bunch, and then start blasting like single target Rift Guardians down, elites or whatever. But then there's also some other legendaries that you can turn it into like a Grim Reaper. And so instead of being like, you kind of like just summon one every couple of yards that you go, because it has a short cooldown, you can build up charges to act as like these mobile turrets as you go to like either kite things into or just like drop big damage increase onto a Rift Guardian. You can then reverse it, summon a Grim Reaper, has a really long cooldown, it's not up 100% of the time, but now does a ridiculous amount of damage in AoE instead of single target. So it's great at going through and handling hordes, and slightly drops off when you're going up against like single target, like a Rift Guardian. And so it's nice that the legendaries, but even the base one on its own, no legendaries or anything like that, still feels good and feels like it does damage, because like the legendaries are like, increase the damage by like 10% or increase the duration by 30%. It's not like sexy. It's like it's not Diablo 3 where it's do 20 million% damage or whatever. But it also means that you don't have to have legendaries to make the skills feel impactful or make them feel good. They also brought the corpse mechanic back for the Necromancer. Always love playing with corpses. It's a great sound clip. They made the Diablo 3 corpse mechanic better because now you don't have to wait for enemies to die. They put mechanics into the game that allows you a bit more control in creating corpses. One of the big ones is Grim Scythe. Is now kind of like a skill in that when you use it, for the first couple of enemies that it hits, they just drop a corpse. And so there's something that you can span every couple seconds in order to create corpses for you, then using Corpse Explosion or Corpse Lance. There's also like the Golem that increases power, the more corpses that consumes corpses to give you more power there. You have a Skeletal Wall back. One of the runes will turn the Skeletal Wall into a wall of skeleton warriors that rushes forward and like stuns anything in the way. But then after a certain amount of time they die, and when they die they leave corpses. If anybody kills your skeletons or your skeletal mage, or even when your mage expires, it leaves a corpse. And so there's a lot of things that now these corpse skills aren't so binary, where it's either where like Pestilence set in Diablo 3 is relegated just to speed running, because you have to be able to kill lots of things really quickly, either to just generate the corpses of killing the monsters, but also to, every monster that you kill gives you the cooldown reduction that allows you to keep Land of the Dead up. And Land of the Dead is the only way to effectively generate enough corpses to make those skills viable to work to deal damage. You now have a better throughput because you have ways of generating corpses as a actual resource mechanic instead of it being a binary of I have to kill a monster and I also have to kill the monster, in a certain efficiency window with my corpse skills to generate enough corpses to then kill the next batch of monsters and such. Now it just feels like a great damage bonus. It's like a great damage spike. And then the other great thing about the corpse skills, both Corpse Explosion and Corpse Lance, is they've got no cooldown. Like it's like half-second cooldown, really short. So you can just spam those. As things die, you're just going and spamming. And so it still has that kind of like speed build aspect to it that when you're doing content below like your gear, when you're doing easier level content, you can just literally like get that skeletal mage out, it like one-shots a whole group of minions, and then you just run through and spamming Corpse Lance, and it's just pulling the corpses from behind you, throwing them forward, and you're just leapfrogging corpses as you're going through because it deals so much damage. And it has like that really feel-good element to it. But even then, when you're pushing higher-end content, a lot of the boss mechanics all have some form of mobs that spawn. So you're never going to be like, oh shit, I got the Rift Guardian that doesn't spawn mobs. They all do. Even just like your regular generic bosses generally all have some form of mob or ad that it spawns during the fight to give you corpses, and even barring that, you get to make your own. You can create your own. And so you usually, if you have some form of Corpse Explosion or Corpse Lance or whatever, you will want to then change your skill loadout to give you one of those things, whether it be Grim Scythe or that modified Bone Wall that generates like just straight up like after 5 seconds it generates like 6 corpses for you, to go through and just hit those great big damage numbers. It's really good. It's really fun. It plays phenomenal. The Necromancer, ton of fun. It feels like a better implementation of the Diablo 3 Necromancer. Like, they looked at the Diablo 3 Necromancer. These are things that we can improve and keep the core gameplay aspect and then bring them into a new game. And so it's like, this isn't Diablo. Diablo Immortal is not Diablo 3.5. It's Diablo 3.2. It takes all the things that were good about Diablo 3 and then improved them. It built upon those aspects. A lot of the game systems themselves are just better defined. Between the technical alpha and the closed alpha, layers went from being like a key farming point to being useless, and now they've readjusted that a little bit. So they put a daily limit on. You used to run layers because it was like the only way that you could get gems for upgrading in your secondary gear, and so the gems just gave straight stats, plus damage, plus armor, whatever, and that you have to upgrade those gems in order to get those stronger bonuses. There's a whole bunch of ranks of those gems, but it just, it is a exponentially increasing amount of gems that you need, and so in the closed alpha, when they removed the layers as a guaranteed way of getting gems, it made it so that way, well, then layers are useless. Who's going to do them? We'll just run dungeons. Now you can run layers and get gems, but there's a daily limit on it. Afterwards, you just don't get any. But they also added in playing in a 4-player group just has a chance of dropping gems. And while the first, like 6 or so gems drop pretty quickly, it dies off relatively quick over there. So there are some mechanics in there that will reward, like, it's like your first couple of hours that you play the game are the most rewarding, and then it tails off from there, but obviously there's still a lot of rewards for continuing to play the game. They re-incentivize the way that, like, the weekly XP caps work. I never hit the weekly XP cap in the closed alpha, but a lot of, like, the blasters, like Rax, Leviathan, uh, Echo Hack, others were constantly hitting. Or not, I guess like Rob was like one of the premier blasters that could reach like the highest Paragon level at all in the closed alpha, and they were hitting the XP cap on like Tuesday, and it wasn't just the XP cap that when you hit it, like items stopped dropping in the game for you. You stopped getting anything. And so they had to create alts in order to go forward. And so it would be like, well, let's spend a couple of days farming up a whole bunch of maps, and then we'll hit the XP cap after we farm. And they've retooled that, and now it's more of like a daily limit instead of a weekly limit. There is a forever scaling world Paragon cap that increases by 2 every day. And while you're underneath the cap, you gain 200% increased experience, gold, mats, and item drops. Once you hit the Paragon cap, and I think it's for up to 5 levels, the bonus goes away, and you just experience the world as it is. And then after those 5 levels, it drops to 25%. And so now you're getting a penalty for being more than 5 Paragon levels above the world cap. And I think after 8 levels, it like drops to nothing. And so like you can still gain some experience, but now you're not getting drops or anything like that. And so it's really, really curbs how much that you can gain. And there's a lot of feedback that's going on with like some of the top blasters this season, like Echo Hack and Dreadscythe. That are going through and kind of like experience and learning that there are certain parts where you save up a whole bunch of items. If you went over like that 5 level cap or whatever, you save up a whole bunch of items, and then you go back to where it's like the 25% cap or the 100% cap, and then you salvage everything. Because if you just wait like 6 hours until like the server cap increases by 2, you'll get a whole lot more bonuses to it. And then like maybe like bounties aren't as efficient once you're over the world Paragon, because it's giving you a lot more experience than it gives you mats. And so there's like this ratio and balancing game between farming for materials, farming for items, and farming for experience, because they're all different mechanics and they all play into your overall power in different ways. Because they did kind of lower. We talked about offense rating and defense rating. If you it was the first time like learning about Diablo Immortal, you never paid attention to it before. Talked about it, during the previous testing phases. But the best way to increase the power of your character is by just increasing your base statistics, your intelligence, willpower, fortitude, and vitality. Because each one of those points, in addition to specific bonuses such as intelligence and strength, increase your damage. All of your stat increases will increase your offense and defense ratings, or might be referred to as ORDR, or as I like to call it, order. Because it just is better than saying ORDR. Offense, defense rating, or just order. It's just your order, because those figures are generally very close to one another. Your defense rating usually is like a little bit higher because like certain stat bonuses and such, but they're generally around that same level, because your stats generally increase around like the same ratio. The equipping better gear or upgrading your gear through the blacksmith, augmenting it, increases those base stats, which then increase your order. And before, like, upgrading the gear would increase your stats at a larger rate. Now it's just increasing it by 2. It used to increase it by like 6. And then you had the Reliquary, which is another like kind of like in-game system that you're rewarded with a currency by doing in-game things, like the new weekly raids. Give you currency that you then trade in to level up your Reliquary, which just gives you flat order. And then as your Reliquary level increases, it unlocks additional raids, and when you beat those raids for the first time, you get other items that will give you just flat increases to your order, which gives you huge power bumps. But those used to give you like, I think it was 8 per level. Now they're also just 2 per level. And so the overall order that you gain is a lot lower. from your items and such, because all of those level bonuses and such have all been decreased. And a lot of the content itself has also had their requirements decreased, making it easier to get into those. So the play path is kind of like reworked a little bit there, but it feels good. Scaling is good. Numbers aren't jumping up as astronomically, and so the content that you're doing isn't also jumping as astronomically, because you get a couple of in the closed alpha, you got a couple of upgrades where you got a new item for your Heliquary, and your order just jumped by like 200 points, and so you might have been stuck on Challenge Rift 46. Now you're doing like Challenge Rift like 54, but then like the scaling, because the scaling was also kind of off. To where like if something had, if you were like 100, if your rating was 100 under what it should be, you're dealing like less than half damage, but if it's only 50 under what it should be, you're only doing like 10% less damage. So there was a huge penalty, a huge drop off. Now it's not as bad. It more progressively scales, at a gentler level, so you can feel that impact grow as you increase. It isn't like, well, I was able to do Challenge Rift 42, but relatively all right. I got it in like half time, but man, Challenge Rift 43 is just impossible. Now if Challenge Rift 43 is impossible, you really had to work hard to get Challenge Rift like 42. It was a more progressive increase. It's not like I cleared this one with 5 minutes to spare and now I just cannot beat the next one. It's I beat this one with like 2 minutes to spare and now I can't beat the next one. So that kind of tapers off a little bit, and your stats increase at a slower rate, so it just, everything feels better. It feels like a more natural progression of stats and such, so that just feels a lot better. The cycle of strife is more or less the same. Didn't really feel any real big differences there in how that system or mechanic works. I'm an immortal now, and that's pretty much playing the same. I haven't had much of an experience. I haven't been playing this as much as I did the previous one. Like, it even took me a week to reach max level. So like I said at the beginning, my life has been really busy, and I haven't had as much time to go through and dedicate to it. I haven't even matched the World Paragon cap, but I went in. But it's like when you get that 200% bonus, you catch up relatively fast. So like going into the weekend, I think I was like Paragon like 16, or not even. I was like Paragon, I think like 14. On Friday, and then by Monday I was Paragon 20. So it increased really fast. So you catch up to that World Paragon really quick with those bonuses. But then also, as like I was saying before, there's like a cat and mouse system where it's like, oh yeah, don't pick up the experience orbs, because every experience orb that you pick up means that you got to the cap a little bit faster, and that's like one less salvage that you got. It's less items that you got when you get there. So there's like this weird feeling to it. You always want to like stay under cap and such. But for the most part, just going through and playing it from like a casual aspect, it feels pretty good. Though there are some negative things, some bad things I've noticed in the game, and that's when we're going to talk about monetization. In the past episodes and the past tests, I was a big proponent of the monetization systems that they had in Diablo Immortal weren't that bad. Sure, as we saw in the closed alpha, there was some pay for power elements in it. That you could, that the only way to acquire legendary crests was using real money currency, which we couldn't do at the time. We were just given daily stipends to use as we saw fit, and some of the best ways of doing that was just buy legendary crests and then go and run the legendary crests, get the legendary gems, upgrade the legendary gems, or just find rarer legendary gems, and those gave you better stat bonuses. And now the way that they worked previously was it just increased like there would be a base element. The better your gym, the more it would increase the base stats, the item that you were, but not the the intelligence, but the base attribute. All of the items have either life or damage. They either increase your life or they increase your damage, and that's its base attribute. And so if you socketed like a really high level gym, it might increase that base attribute by 15%. And so you equip that into a weapon in order to get 15% more damage on that weapon, and you feel really good. And then my lower level one only increased the stats by like 15%. So it was, you by being able to max out your gym as well as just farm more to get a higher level one, increase the base damage of your weapon by 10% more than what mine was. Which is, in the grand scheme of things, really isn't that bad. 10% is like the damage variance on like your skill damage. So sometimes my skill is hitting for as hard as your skill, and sometimes, and obviously sometimes, most of the time yours is hitting for more, but sometimes, we're hitting for the same amount, or mine might spike a little bit higher. That 10% is less than the variance. It's a little bit harder to notice. It's like, you can play through a 10% handicap. If you're a good PvPer, you can play through a 10% handicap. And that's really all that it was. It's like, oh no, it's like you got a rank 10, lightning gem, and mine's only a rank 5, so you do, your weapon has 10% more base damage, and your orb does like 15% more damage on the proc than what mine does. Ooh. I play more than you do, and so I've got like 30 more Paragon levels, and I also have, that playtime worth of salvage mats and item collection in order to try and get those rare triple stack gear and everything that just beat the shit out of you. It's like, okay, so whatever, you've got 10% more base attributes on your gear. Well, I've upgraded all of my gear 5 more ranks than what yours is, so I've got 200 more order. You just deal 50% less damage to me to begin with, so I don't care that you paid your way to a rank 10 gym. Doesn't matter. That's the way the old system was. The new system is the gyms themselves give order. You can get offense and defense rating directly from the legendary gyms, when before they did not. They did not give increase on the base stats that gave your order from the items, and the gyms themselves did not. Now they do, and if you get like I have put some money in. I've paid, I want to say, about like $250. I messed around with going through and dropping a whole bunch of like legendary gems just to get a legendary crest to get a whole bunch of legendary gems, as well as like buying all of the bonuses and seeing how that feels. Not the bonuses, but the bundles. Every time you complete a story element, you get like a $1 to $5 bundle that gives you a whole bunch of like crafting materials, as well as all of the money that you spent in Eternal Orbs. So you get normally, so if you bought 500 Eternal Orbs for $5, and they gave you a one-time bundle that costs $5, they'll also give you 500 orbs in addition to all the other bonuses. So it made it so that way when I hit like level cap, my gear was I had like 2 or 3 extra ranks across all of my gear, more than what you might have at that particular point in time, and I was able to farm up a full set of legendary gems because of all of the extra legendary crests that I got. And then once I hit max level, I bought a couple $100 worth of legendary crests to go through and jump into the rift. And so I've got I got like 1 5-star gem, which is like the rarest, and I managed to get it. You have the 5-star gem of what it could be, and it will have a random number of stars allocated to it, and I managed to luck out and get a 5-star gem, so its stat bonuses are maxed. And like, as opposed to like a rank 1 gem that's a lot easier to level up, the rank 5 gems are a lot harder to level up. They require considerably more gems to sacrifice to level it up, because in order to level up any of these gems, you've got to put other gems into it in order to get them. So it's kind of like you pay money to get gems, and then you use those gems to upgrade your other gems, that you then pay more money to get more gems to then go through and upgrade and such. And God, it gives a lot of order. I have like a rank 2 5-star gym that gives 72 order. That is a lot. That is a lot of stats, you know, because right now I'm just sitting at 1100. And, you know, across all of my gear, I have about 200 order just from my legendary gems. And that's, you know, from only spending like 200 bucks on legendary crests to get legendary gems. I spent like $50 on like the platinum or whatever to do like the keys and some stuff that isn't really as important. Definitely nowhere near as much power going and unlocking the Heraldric Vault as it is to just buying legendary gems. And like if you're going through and thinking, oh wow, you dropped like $200, that's like going through, that's like whaling. God, no. Because even then, even with going through and like equating like more than 20% of my total order is from pay to win currency, that is nowhere near enough. I'm like, you know, I'm now like level 22 with like almost like I'm like 1170 on my order. Not even close to the blasters at level 30 in terms of their stats and their gear, because they've all got like Paragon 30. Every 10 levels unlocks like a new like gear quality that increases like the stat ranges on its items. So there's still a huge amount of stats that you can gain just by leveling up and doing harder level content to get better gear. I still don't come close to that. But there are others that have. And it's not so much that it's like, oh, just spend a couple $100. Oh no. There are people that have spent thousands and thousands of dollars in the game and have maxed out these gems to rank 10. Have gotten the new Awakening component, which then not only is it giving huge stat bonuses, so it's no longer like 15% increased stats on your weapon, it's like 25-30% stat increases to all of your equipped items, all of them, not just the one that it was equipped to. It gives it the bonus to everything, and you know, going through and giving you like 150 order. It now also allows you to awaken the gem, which then awakens the armor piece that's in it, that then gives it now additional slots for other rank 10 gems. So if you get a gem to rank 10 and awaken it, it allows you to put other rank 10 gems into that gear slot. So it's not just giving you this huge, the great effect of just having a rank 10 gem, the huge stat boost that it's getting for having a rank 10 gem, the huge order boost that it's giving for having a rank 10 gem. You can put other rank 10 gems into this thing and then just get flat damage and defense attributes, bonus skill damage, bonus attack speed, bonus crit chance. It starts scaling at pretty insane levels. And so now you have people that are like Paragon 18, which are having stats that are really, really close to these people that are out there at like Paragon 30, 32, that have all full triple stat gear, but like rank 2, rank 3 gems, and people running around with multiple pieces of awakened gear with a dozen rank 10 gems all slotted into like their skill bonuses and such, and they have comparable stats. They still at the disadvantage of not having the Paragon levels, so their base stats are lower because of not having those Paragon levels to give them the bonuses, and that's something that's a lot more it's not as impactful right now, but as you get into the higher Paragon trees, you begin to start having active bonuses that have a lot more like benefit, because right now, even at level 30, like the most that you can have is like every enemy that you kill like increases your attack speed. Woo. You know, but eventually you'll also get it to where you'll just do like 5% flat damage, or other ones where if you get critically hit, it prevents you, or you get crowd controlled, you gain crowd control immunity for a couple seconds, you know, or you gain like a damage shield whenever you get crit that triggers every couple of seconds. So with the Paragon level, there's still a lot of bonuses in there that can't be replicated through like the Awaken system in the gyms, and so there's still going to be a huge set of power that comes from the Paragon tree and the base stats that you can get there. But the question is, will the flat damage bonuses and order bonuses that you can get from these rank 10 gems in all of your gear begin to compensate for that? Because it's not just that, because eventually you'll even be able to compensate that with the paid-to-win currency, like I mentioned with the Heraldric Sanctum, where it doesn't give you as much power as the Legendary Crest, but once you max out your Legendary Gems and all of your Awakened gear and such, if you still want to continue to spend money, you're going to spend it in the Heraldric Sanctum, which then gives you just flat damage, health, armor pen that Paragon levels do. Not at the same rate that the Paragon levels do. They're much slower, but it's still something that you can kind of, buy into. And so it's just, And then also just leveling up the regular gems that give you just base damage, base armor, and such past rank 5 requires platinum, which is like, you either get 300 a day by doing in-game activities, when everything like requires like 2,000, so it's something that you have to save up over the course of multiple days in order to do anything with your platinum, or selling gems for minute amounts of platinum, because you can sell like rank 2 gems for like 4,000 platinum, at least on the server as it is now, or 2-star gems, for like 4k platinum, but then like everything costs like 2k to do anything with, so it's like, or you can just spend real money on platinum in order to do anything that you want with it. It's definitely one of those ones that the level of power that you got in the closed alpha from the pay to win, the paid real money transactions was a lot lower and felt a lot more manageable, because it doesn't matter how many bonuses that you got, because of the scaling way that order worked, you would never catch up to the person that just played the game more. Now, that's not the case. Now you can catch up to the person that just plays the game more, because you are getting those stats that matter and allow you to scale and punch above your weight class. It always was, like in the closed alpha, pay to win just allowed you to win your weight class. If you only played casually, you would never catch up to the person that was free to play and blasting, playing 16 hours a day. You would never touch them, no matter how much you spent. Now, it's a little bit closer. It's weird because we're in that kind of like that crunch period. Obviously, this game is going to last for years, and like that Paragon, that world server Paragon level is going to be, in the hundreds. We already, like, what is it, the current cap? Because there's 4 Paragon trees. The Paragon cap is effectively level 400, which is huge. It's going to take months and months of dedicated grinding in order to get there, to even, reach that Paragon 400 is going to take the server, the better part of a year to even catch up to allow people to get to that rank in the first place. So it's not like someone can just come in and whale their way at Paragon 10 and compete with a Paragon 300 person. But at least to the beginning, it definitely isn't going to feel great. And it also is one of those ones where it's like, I spent like $250 and I got like some rank 5 gems. And it's exponential with how much more that you need to go up from there, to go from rank 5 to rank 10. It's not just, let me spend an extra $250 and get that rank 5 gem to rank 10. No. It's a lot more money than that. And so it's one of those things that it's like, a casual player or a free-to-play player, I don't know, will you ever see Awakened gear? I mean, that's obviously that's hyperbole, but how long is it going to take? Because right now, like, they did improve the rewards for doing the rare crests. Personally, I think I've seen like one legendary. If I put in 3 rare crests, that's the one that you can just kind of like earn with the in-game currency and such, and you just get one every day, and you can buy like a little battle pass for like $5 that then gives you a free one from that every day for a month. You get a ton through just the battle pass itself, and you got a lot that you can buy weekly with the honor, or what's called hilts now. And so you can get a lot of these rare crests, and you can do, you know, like one or two every day without ever having to spend any real money or anything like that. And then there's other mechanics that you can go through, and you can get additional ones of these. I imagine through like becoming an immortal, you know, or I don't know if there's the way of just being an adventurer and not a shadow gives you more of these, but it's not that hard. And I want to say that I'm like, for every 3 rifts that I do with the full 3 crests, I want to say every 5 to 6 rifts, I get a legendary gem, which is a hell of a lot more than what we got in the closed alpha. I've seen some people that have been saying they're like 1 in 10, and I've seen others that are saying like 1 in 4. You know, so it's significantly more. You are going to be able to get a full allotment of legendary gems as a free-to-play player. And you'll probably, some of those rank 1 gems, or those 1-star gems, are relatively easy to rank up to like level 5 in order to get you some bonuses to magic find and such. But yeah, you're either going to be saving up a ton of platinum and forgoing other in-game systems, such as trying to speed up your Heraldric Sanctum a little bit, or imbuing skill charms, or leveling up your regular gems past rank 5, in order to try and like gamble in the market and get a little bit more platinum that way, to then buy higher level gems with platinum in the marketplace with other players. Or you just have to wait and get lucky and leave it to luck, or use, like, there's a couple of gems that you can buy monthly, you know, with honor, and then use those to like kind of like upgrade and fodder and level stuff up. But it's it looks like it's going to be a huge time commitment for a free-to-play player in order to level up the legendary gems. And you're really just taking those legendary gems as like, I'm taking it just for like this flat bonus of the base gem, and if I get a couple of upgrades on it, cool, I got lucky, you know. But with the amount of money that people have been spending in order to get these gems awakened, even rank 1 gems awakened, or sorry, 1-star gems, not rank 1, but 1-star gems awakened, that's some serious cash that people are having to go through and throw into it. And right now it feels, it doesn't feel right. It feels as if they went a little bit too far. Because even if they had this system and all that other types of stuff, and they just took order off of the gems, take the offense and defense rating off of the legendary gems, it really wouldn't feel as bad, because then the person that plays more and gets a higher level gear will always have more order, and all of the stat bonuses that the guy that has the awakened gems and stuff like that are reduced, you know, by significant amounts in terms of like PvP and such. And that, to me, is fine. Let them win their weight class. I'm okay with like the pay to win element of letting them win their weight class, you know, but don't let them compete above their weight class is where I draw, you know, my line. Other people might draw the line, you know, they shouldn't be able to win their weight class. There should be no pay to win mechanics whatsoever, and that's where they draw their line. I understand that. I respect that. You know, but I also know, you know, it's you know, it's going to be a free to play game, and you have to have a level of monetization within it that's going to go through and support it. And in the mobile game genre, it's kind of like pay to win. And I thought Immortal had a really good system before, where it balanced the pay to win with people's expectations, that if you just played the game more and were a better player, wouldn't matter. The person that dropped $2,000 still is not, they still would be below you. You would have a level playing field. Now it doesn't seem as much as the case, unless it's just like significant power differences over time. That, like I said, it's been a week and a half. I guess it's been 2 weeks. Where's my time frame? It's like tomorrow it will have been 2 weeks. So I don't know. You know, it's just, you know, maybe it's like it's an issue at the start of the game, and a couple months in, it will separate itself, and those people that are pay to win won't have as many advantages just because the gear increases will continue to scale every 10 levels, and that will outpace the level, because eventually, you know, once you have all of your gems maxed out, you're no longer gaining order, that even though you're continuing to gain like crit and skill bonuses and stuff like that, the scaling aspect with the order stops, and so everything gets reduced down, at set rates, and so it won't matter as much. But yeah, right now definitely it's a feels bad man, and this is coming from someone that was defending the system in all previous systems of it. So that's my spicy, lukewarm take on it. Is I do think that Blizzard's went a little step too far with the power that you can get from monetization. And so, that's kind of my piece for it. I do thoroughly enjoy Diablo Immortal. The game itself is amazingly fun. A lot of the focus is, of course, on PvP elements with the cycle of strife and such, but you really don't have to engage in it if you don't want to. You can even actually engage in the cycle of strife and become a shadow and do 0 PvP. And just like, it's cool. I get some cool bonuses for being a shadow, so I'm going to go through and do that. Or just be an adventurer and not care one way or the other. The Immortals are kind of forced into it with their daily goals. A lot of it involves doing battlegrounds and such, so you've got to, as well as the Immortals just being forced. You can be a shadow, not join a dark house, not really care about anything that's going on, but the Immortals will always be called to battle every rite of exile. So there's a little bit less opt-in on that one. But the raids, the LaSalle raid feels awesome, compared to how that fight was going in the previous one. Can't wait for the next raid to open up at some point during the closed beta. That's going to be very interesting. But yeah, I mean, gameplay is cool. It's awesome. If you enjoy Diablo 3, you're going to love Diablo Immortal, because the gameplay is all built on, making those systems better. It will be worth your time to go through, check out, play through the story, maybe come back every time that they add in a new content patch, because it is going to be something that they're going to add regularly, whether they be new zones, new dungeons, new classes and such. It's going to get a ton of content, and all of that content will be free. And if you don't really care about going through and competing in the PvP side of it, the pay-to-win mechanics won't be, as blatant. But we will of course have to see where the game or ecosystem ends up being. Right now in the beta, there's like literally thousands of people that are going through and playing in the Australia and the Canadian servers, and so you don't see people specifically looking for whales, or groups being formed around like whales only or anything like that. So it's not that much of an issue yet. We'll have to wait and see, what that looks like, in a month or two, or once the game itself comes out. But yeah, that kind of like wraps up my thoughts on all the Diablo updates and such. I do want to go through and dig down deep into some of the cool things in Diablo Immortal, specifically some of my thoughts and opinions, more of like a deep dive on the Necromancer and such. And so look forward to that in future episodes. But otherwise, feel free. You can always go through, follow the show. I record live every other Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. You can also find all prior episodes of the show over on YouTube. You can also find like the most recent episodes on Stitcher, iTunes. The show is around a lot of places. If you have any questions, comments, feedbacks, or concerns, feel free to drop me a line at westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. Again, that email address is westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com, as well as just check and see when the show goes live over on Twitter @the WM Workshop, or you can always go through and find my my full unfiltered and carefree comments on Twitter @9ballgamer. I talk a lot about Diablo, Blizzard in general, and a hell of a lot of Warcraft Warhammer. God, fire me for that one. But yeah, I'm a big Warhammer fan, and so I've been doing a lot of stuff over there. So feel free to go through and catch that. as well as just come hang out here for the live shows. Yeah, with that, I'll catch you all next time. The next episode is currently scheduled to go live the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I do plan on making that recording, but just keep an eye on Twitter. Just to confirm in case I have to go and change the timing on that one. But until next time, you have a good night and some good times over in Sanctuary.